Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francis, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. Here's a question. Are we attracted to people who are authentic? Or is what attracts us to people the way they validate us? Now, granted, we all love to be validated, but is that the sole reason why we choose who we choose when it comes to dating? See, many of our romantic choices come down to self-esteem, and it's not just confidence, but the internal sense of worth that tells us we are enough. Here's the thing. Attraction isn't just about chemistry or compatibility. It's not just about love, which I think I've mentioned before. It is also sometimes about validation. We are drawn to people who reflect how we feel about ourselves. And when that self-perception is shaky, we start looking outside for that reassurance. And that funny thing that happens when we do that is, number one, we might become an anxious type of person. We also might end up dating the narcissist, which I've mentioned many times before. See, in the narcissistic handbook, first and foremost, it's like chapter 1, it's love bombing. And when we are a person whose self-image isn't where it should be, and we start relying on outside sources for validation, that love bombing almost feels like it completes us, makes us whole, makes us feel good about ourselves and our situation, and then makes us also very prone and easy to be taken advantage of. But let's start by breaking it down. Self-esteem is the story we tell ourselves about our own worth, and it influences everything, especially dating. People with healthy self-esteem tend to build slow, intentional relationships. They don't rush into things because they don't need external proof that they matter. I remember someone who said, "I knew she wasn't the one, but she made me feel so wanted, and I didn't want that feeling to go away." And so they stayed together, even though she didn't make him feel like, or even though he didn't realize that she wasn't it, or he realized that she wasn't it, but he was just hooked on that validation and figured, where am I going to get this? Now, when we look at self-esteem, okay, we need to tell ourselves that we are worthy of love. And I was literally having a conversation with somebody last night about this. And sometimes because of validation or other external factors, we might put up with somebody because we like them. We think that they're good for us, even though the things that they say aren't real, even though that we are essentially living by their rules. And because we are, and I don't like to use this word sparingly, or I don't like to use this word because it's not always correct, but desperate, it's like we're willing to take someone's shit. It's the same reason why people stay with narcissists. But again, narcissists is a little bit of a different story, because once they feel like they're losing grip, they know how to pull you back in. They know how to be like charming and love bombing and all that stuff to like pull you back in again. So if we don't believe that we're worthy of someone treating us the way that we wish to be treated, the way that we want to be treated, then what ends up happening is we get stuck. We get stuck into a relationship where someone might not be exactly what we're looking for. And in fact, someone might be far from what we're looking for. But because we don't think that we can get better or deserve better, we just fall into a trap and just stay there and think, you know what? This is life now. This is how things are going to go. And too bad. You know, it's better than the alternative. And it's like, I ask, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? And you know what these people will tell me? The alternative is being alone. Because again, they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they could possibly find someone who will love them the way they want to be loved. And to me, it's a little bit sad because it's like there's like a meme or a picture where a guy is like holding someone over the edge of a cliff and there's a snake like continuously biting his arm. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about. But it's like we're hurting ourselves for the sake of saying that we have something, even though in reality, what is it that we have? We have the ability to essentially be somebody's slave for the most part, in loose terms, because we're so scared of losing what that is, that we'll essentially do whatever they say and we'll be okay with whatever they say. And as much as I don't want to say this, I've literally seen, unfortunately, women succumb to physical violence and not walk away. I've seen women be put into situationships where a guy will, you know, explain why it's okay for him to go out on dates with other women and sleep with other women while she has to stay home and not talk to any other guys and not essentially do the same thing that he's doing. So it's almost like a one-way, non-monogamous, ethical relationship, even though it's not really that ethical. And I've seen that a bunch of times too. And it's like, you ask, are you okay with this? And the answer is no. And then you say, okay, but what are you doing about it? And the answer is also nothing. Because they're too scared to lose it. They're too scared to be alone. And it's in those situations where I say, you know what, maybe you need to be alone. Maybe you need some time to figure out who you are, figure out what you deserve. And if you don't think that you deserve better, maybe you need some time to ask yourself why. Why don't you deserve better? Something that I say to these people specifically is that you need to forgive yourself. First and foremost. I don't know for what, because it could be a million different reasons why you need to forgive yourself, whether it's forgive yourself for staying in this type of relationship, forgive yourself for putting up with this stuff, forgive yourself for treating yourself so bad that you allow this to continue on, forgive yourself for not believing in yourself and thinking that you deserve better. I was just about to say something and it just escaped my mind. That's been happening a lot lately, hasn't it? Forgive yourself. Yeah, okay. Nonetheless, you need to forgive yourself. Just looking at my notes. Okay, moving on. So, why do we fall for certain people? Apparently psychologists talk about mirror theory and that we are attracted to what feels familiar. If we're used to emotional distance, we might seek that out, even if we say we want intimacy. And I know that sentence is going to, it's going to really ring bells with some people. Again, conversation last night. That's kind of where I came up with this, because some people out there say they want intimacy, but the minute that it starts going down that path, it's almost they turn into a statue. Or They don't know what to do. They don't know how to initiate it. They don't know how to let someone know that it's okay. And it just becomes a whole lot of nothing except, being worried. And then you get stuck in your head and you're like, wait a minute, this person hasn't made a move on me. Is it me that I'm being too, standoffish? Is it them that they don't like me? What's going on? I'm not worthy of it. They don't like me. I'm not good enough. I shouldn't bother talking to them anymore. And you get stuck into your head and you get into this perpetual loop of negative sayings, negative energy. And a lot of the times that's not the case. There's people out there that are actually respectful of boundaries. And maybe, they're not the greatest at reading signals. Let's be honest. Sometimes guys aren't the best at reading signals. And specifically, I said, as a woman, take the initiative. Just try it. And I implore all women that listen to this to just try it. Tell a guy that you think he's cute or good looking. Tell a guy that you want to hold his hand. Tell a guy that you want him to kiss you. And watch what happens. And watch what happens. Because I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, that guy is going to turn into a puddle in front of you. He's just going to melt because he's not going to even know what to do or how to handle that situation. Because believe it or not, that doesn't happen to most guys. Most guys don't get put into those situations. So if you ask a guy, hey, you know what? I like you. Why don't you hold my hand? Hey, I like you. Why don't you try kissing me? That guy's going to turn into jello right before your eyes. And here's the thing. I know that's being bold. That's like taking a big step, especially for women, because 9 times out of 10 women aren't those types of people. They aren't the type to reach out. They aren't the type to, initiate that kind of move. But I'm telling you, it works. So if you ever are in a place of dating a guy and he's a little bit clueless, just say something. This is, again, I'm going to harp back to it again. Communication. Communication is everything, right? And if you were just to hint at it, not hint, but hint, as in, hey, why don't you try kissing me? That kind of hint, and see what happens. That guy's gonna, me, yeah, me, yeah, really? Oh my God. Okay, sure, yeah. Jello in your hands. And I know what some of you are out there thinking, going back to the whole beginning of this podcast of self-esteem. And it's what if he rejects me? What if he's not interested? What if he says no? Well, first of all, you just did yourself a massive favor. You just found out that this person that you're spending time with and going out with doesn't like you that way. Now, I mean, if you guys are friends and you want to keep that up, by all means, go right ahead. But if you were looking at this from a romantic point of view, you just learned that this person isn't necessarily interested in you that way. Now, here's the thing. I get it. It sucks when we like someone and they don't like us back. But you can't look at it as it's, you personally, because if you're being your authentic self and he doesn't like your authentic self, then that's just the way it is. It's unfortunate, but it's a fact. It's the same thing that if a guy you didn't find intelligent or you didn't find attractive was to come up to you and say, hey, I like you, let's go out sometime. And then now you're stuck there going, yeah, no, sorry, I have a boyfriend, I'm sorry. Or whatever you're going to use to get out of that situation, right? You're going to feel a little bit bad for him. But if you truly felt bad, you'd go out with him, wouldn't you? No, you're not going to, because you're not interested. And it's no hard feelings to the guy. Could be the nicest guy. Maybe somebody else will find him attractive. You just don't. And like, that's the same thing with you. If somebody doesn't find you attractive, if somebody isn't interested in you romantically, it has nothing to do with the type of person you are or the way you should look at yourself. Think of it more as like pieces of a puzzle, you know? Each piece of the puzzle is just as important as every other piece of the puzzle, because if you're missing a piece of the puzzle, you'll have a hole in the puzzle. If two pieces don't go together, they go together somewhere else. And that's it. If you meet someone who isn't interested in you romantically, that's it. But it's better to find that out sooner rather than later, you know? And this is why I say communication is so important. That if you're seeing someone and unsure of where it's going, ask them, hey, just out of curiosity, is this more of a friendship or are you interested in me romantically? And again, I understand it's hard to say these things. And if it's hard to say these things face to face, do it over the phone. If it's hard to do it over the phone, send a text message. And if it's hard for it to be a text message, get one of your friends to do it for you, because I'm sure that they would love to text a guy from your phone saying those things, because they know that it's in your best interest that you find out. Right? Right. Okay. Coming back into that self-esteem and like where we're dating and why we're dating and like where's this coming from. I recently saw this online. It's something that I've sort of said in more words than this, but I saw this on Instagram from another, I guess, relationship type influencer or spiritual type influencer, Sarah Al-Madani. She's absolutely incredible. A lot of the stuff that she says, I tend to agree with. Most of it, I think. There are some things that I don't, nonetheless. When I heard her say this, it almost like, it just rang so true with me, because it's exactly what I'm always saying in just more words. And I have not ever found a more eloquent way to put this. So when you go out into the dating world and looking for a relationship, right? And you need to be with somebody, you're coming from a place of emptiness almost. Like you need to fill. And if it becomes a need in that retrospect, then someone can obviously take advantage of you. But see, if you're going out into the world looking for a relationship and dating because you want one, not because you need one, because you want one, you're coming from a place of abundance, where if somebody isn't giving you the things that you want, you're not stuck. You can easily walk away. And it's easier for you to do that sort of thing in that situation. So if you find yourself saying to yourself that you need somebody, understand that there's issues with that. You need to ask yourself why. Why do you need someone? Do you need someone to validate you? Do you need someone to give you worth? Because I'm going to tell you right now, you don't. It just feels like you do, but you don't. You need to figure, out the rest. But at the end of the day, you don't. You don't need anybody to validate you. You need to learn how to validate yourself. And like I said, when you're getting into relationships because of those reasons, because of a lower self-esteem, that's when you get stuck. That's when you find yourself in bad places. And, the logical part of you wants to walk away. The emotional part of you wants to stay. And then there's an internal battle with inside you. I literally see this specifically with, older, depends what you consider older, but, women in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s who are divorced and essentially are coming from maybe not the greatest marriage, where their husbands possibly took advantage of them and verbally abused them a lot. Because if you hear the same things over and over and over and over again, they start to become true inside your mind. It's the same reason why affirmations work, because we're just reminding ourselves over and over again that we are worth it. And it's the same thing if we talk bad about ourselves, we are just adding to the problem, because now we're just going to believe that these negative things about us are true, the same way that an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-husband, or ex-wife was beating down into our head. And this is where we have to be careful. I talk a lot about communication and how important communication is. Communication is just as important that we have with ourselves when we talk to ourselves. You know, like when we make a mistake, are we the type that says, I'm so stupid? Or, oh shit, I made a mistake, I should correct this? Because adding in that I'm so stupid part and you continuously making more mistakes time and time again, you're going to start to believe this. You know, it's the same thing with those who continuously say that they're clumsy. And you know, I know so many people that say that. They're like, oh my God, I'm such a klutz. I'm so clumsy. And it's like, are you really though? Like maybe a few times, you know, you had an accident. But is it now the other way around, where because you've said it to yourself so many times, you're almost doing it on purpose subconsciously because you have to make what you say true? Because as human beings, one of our most amazing traits is that we strive for consistency. We strive for consistency. We hate when things aren't the same. As much as change within us is inevitable, we all hate change. So when we talk to ourselves and tell ourselves things, is it our subconscious that is self-sabotaging us because we've said like, oh, I'm not good in a relationship. I can't do long-term because, you know, I'm damaged, or whatever the case is. Or I'm a klutz, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. And our subconscious is like, oh, well, this is what's said. This is what's true. And we have to keep up appearances. So let's knock that thing over. Something to think about, isn't it? Is this backed by science? I think so. There's something to be said about this stuff. I read it somewhere, I think. Pretty sure. Sounds true. No, really, this is true. These things do happen. This is all true. So, yeah. Let's see. I had some questions for you. I just can't find them. Okay. Here we go. Sorry, I took a second. I want to ask you 3 reflective questions that you have to ask yourself. Okay. And hopefully this helps wake something up inside you and helps you realize something. What does my ideal partner reflect about how I see myself? Okay. When do I feel most emotionally secure in dating? That's a big one. That's an important one. And the last one. Am I attracted or just trying to feel enough? I want you to take some time. Ask yourself those questions. Answer them down. Write them down if you must. Write down your answers in your journal. And really, really sit with this. Figure out what your self-esteem is like. Remember I talked about the voices we have in our heads a few episodes ago, handful of episodes ago. And how does that, change our judgment based on, whose voice is there and what they're saying. This goes along with that. Okay. And you need to know real love starts with self-worth, meaning, and I know it's the most cliche thing in the world, but if you don't love yourself, how can anybody else love you? Or how can you love anybody else? Like truly. And when you believe you're enough, you stop looking for someone to complete you and you start looking for someone who complements you. That is that for this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments based on anything I said, or you just want to talk, or you have some ideas for a podcast, feel free to email me at joeyfrancis.com. That's joeyfrances.com. And there you are able to send me a message and I can respond to you. There you can also find other places to listen or watch this podcast, whether it be Spotify, YouTube, etc., etc. And you can also purchase my books there. Yeah, that is about it. So I will repeat myself in saying real love starts with real self-worth. And when you believe you're enough, you stop looking for someone to complete you and you start looking for someone who complements you. Till next time.